Today I'm going to be talking about one of the core strategies from the book, The Core 6 Essential Strategies for Achieving Excellence with the Common Core. We're going to be talking about Circle of Knowledge. Circle of Knowledge provides teachers with a strategic framework for planning and conducting discussions that foster student participation and critical thinking. 3 reasons for using Circle of Knowledge. Effective oral communication is a crucial 21st century skill. To become college and career ready, students must have ample opportunities to take part in a variety of rich, structured conversations as part of a whole class, in small groups, and with a partner, built around important content. The Circle of Knowledge strategy helps teachers create this classroom culture where we can have these rich, structured conversations, and we can have them become the norm in our classrooms. Speaking and listening require thinking. Students need to be able to participate effectively, build on each other's ideas, and integrate and evaluate information. Evaluate a speaker's point of view, reasoning, and use of evidence. Circle of Knowledge discussions are built around serious, thought-provoking questions. Discussions build collaborative and interpersonal skills. To thrive in a diverse setting, students need to learn how to listen attentively, appreciate opposing points of view, and disagree without steamrolling or being steamrolled by their peers. The research behind Circle of Knowledge. Discussion is an essential component of any thoughtful classroom. The problem. In many classrooms, what goes by the name discussion is actually recitation, that form of discourse in which the teacher asks recall questions and gets short answers back from students. In this type of situation, students are not given the time that they need to think deeply about the content. When this happens, usually 3 or 4 students will end up dominating the conversation. Then once one of these students gives the correct answer, the class will move on to the next question, and the discussion will be over before it has a chance to begin. On the other hand, research shows that when students are in discussion-rich classrooms, they get to experience real academic and social benefits. They get to experience deeper comprehension, greater empathy and respect for their peers, and an increased ability to handle rigorous content. So in order for us to have these successful discussions, these are the 3 essential criteria. Number 1 is a high degree of student participation. Number 2 is a strong focus on essential content. And number 3 is high levels of thinking. Circle of Knowledge depends on a number of techniques or moves that teachers can make during the discussion to meet these 3 criteria. So we're going to dive a little bit deeper. Starting with the first one, student participation. How can I increase participation? Allow students to test and share ideas in small groups. Having time to think and talk usually makes for better responses. Use a variety of recognition techniques. When calling on students, don't limit yourself to student volunteering, random calling, or surveying. When we use additional techniques in our classrooms, it can increase the level of the discussion and the quality of the participation. A couple of examples, there's one called Round Robin, which can give every student a turn to talk. And this can help with those students that are feeling anxious about sharing because they're expecting their turn to come up. Another one is called Sampling, where you can ask the same question to a number of students in a row, and this will help establish a pool or a wide range of ideas. Another example is student calling, where one student will address a question to another student, and this encourages students to stop talking to you and start engaging with their peers. Another one is redirection, where you can redirect a student's question to another student or to the group as a whole and get the class to explore the question that the student asked. Court controversy. Build your discussions around truly provocative ideas and questions. Get students personally and actively involved. So for getting them actively involved, you could have them get up and take a physical position according to their opinions. One example that I liked was called the people graph, and You had the students line up in the classroom or along a hallway, along a continuum, and 0 could equal strongly disagree and 10 could equal strongly agree. Or 0 equals strongly disagree and 10 equals strongly agree, and they stand according to the strength of their opinions. Our second point for our second criteria was a strong focus on essential content. How can we keep our students focused? Integrate note-making into discussions. Whenever you pose a question or whenever students need more time to stop and think, let them jot down some notes. Record responses and summarize frequently. When you're having a discussion in class, jot down your key ideas on the board. When we record in our classroom, it can slow the pace of the discussion and it can give our students more time to think. Make sure to not over-record because then that can hinder the excitement of your discussion. To clarify, you can ask students to restate what previous speakers have said, and to summarize, you can stop every 5 minutes and ask students to paraphrase the ideas. Our third criteria was high levels of thinking. We can encourage students to stop and think about the question. I really liked this quote. It said, "Impulsiveness is the enemy of deep thinking." We can help our students slow down and internalize the discussion question by writing the question on the board. Use Q space to shape discussions. This is an acronym. Q is for question. Pose a question that requires thinking. Make sure all students understand what you are asking. S is for silence and wait time. Students typically need about 3 to 5 seconds of wait time to process a question. Give them these 5 seconds so that they can find their response. P is for probe. Help students expose and articulate their thinking with questions like, "How did you come up with that idea? Can you tell me more?" A is for accept. Accept every response. Keep the discussion going. You don't have to affirm or correct students' responses too often. C is for clarify. Ask students to restate their own or other students' ideas. E is for elaborate. Work with students to take their ideas further. Try using a what-if question. Ask students to reflect on the quality of their contributions. Teach them what it means to be thoughtful, how to be a thoughtful participant, and encourage them to monitor and reflect on their performance. Implementing circle of knowledge in the classroom. Pose open-ended questions that hook the students into the material. Give students the time that they need to stop and think about the question. Remember, one way of doing this could be writing the question on the board. Sharpen the focus of the discussion by posing a focusing question. Have students jot down their initial thoughts and share in small groups. Engage the whole class in the discussion. Use a variety of recognition techniques. This is where our Q space comes back. Record students' responses and summarize key content. Allow students to reflect on the discussion. Synthesize student learning with a task that asks them to apply what they learned during the discussion. We're going to look at a couple of sample lessons. Well, this is just reminding us of our Q space. Our first sample lesson comes from a high school geometry class. Our teacher is Eileen Cho, and she believes that too many math classrooms run through important concepts too quickly, sealing students off from the provocative issues and ideas that make mathematics interesting. So her sparking question, how do you know when something is real? After she asks her questions, she allows her students a couple of minutes to write down their ideas and then share in small groups of 4. After they've had time to share, she conducts a class-wide discussion. She asks, "Okay, who has an idea?" Her student Stephen raises his hand and he answers, "Well, I think you know something is real if you can see it." This leads them into their discussion, and after a few minutes, she sharpens the discussion's focus by explaining that many of the world's great thinkers and mathematicians have also been taken up by the same question, and that 2 of the most important minds in history, Plato and Einstein, have explored the question as it relates specifically to geometry. For her focusing question, she distributes out 3 different readings to the class. So one is from Plato, The other one is from Einstein, and then the last one lays out an argument which claims that geometry simply reflects what we see in nature. So after this, they have another classroom discussion, and then they have their synthesis activity, which is tying everything back in together. So for homework, she asks her students to select the reading that most resembles their own position and defend it against the other two. Our second lesson is coming from a second grade class, so for English, Language Arts, and Social Studies. Our teacher is Sam Carlisle, and her class just got done they're currently learning about the Underground Railroad. They read the book The Drinking Gourd, which is a chapter book about a family of abolitionists who help a family of runaway slaves to freedom. So this book is asking a provocative question: when is it acceptable to break the law? This teacher, Sam, she's using circle of knowledge to help students explore and develop their own perspective. Her sparking question. She has two. Why do we have laws? What do laws do for us? She has one focusing question. Were the Fullers right to break the law? Then they have their synthesis activity. She asks her students to write an I think essay, and they take a position on whether they think the Fullers are right or wrong to break the law. Our last sample, going to middle school science now. Our teacher is Carla Jordana, and her students are in their unit of genetics, and they're exploring the controversy related to genetically modified foods. So her sparking questions were: what roles do values and morals play when it comes to scientific progress? Can science go too far? Focusing questions: how can we decide whether the benefits of genetically modified food outweigh the concerns and risks surrounding it? What role should the public play in this debate? What role should the government play? Synthesis activity was for students to group themselves and then explain why their positions did or did not change as a result of the discussion. Planning considerations. These are for us, the teachers. What are my topic and my purpose? It's important to look for topics that are magnets for controversy. They invite differing perspectives, and they engage students in deep thinking, deep exploration. How will my questions set up the discussion and generate student interest? So for our focusing questions, we can have one focusing question, or we can have 2 to 3. And those different questions can lead the discussion down other important paths. Our sparking questions, remember the purpose of these sparking questions is to help students draw on their life experiences and prior knowledge for material to bring it back to the discussion. How will students acquire the necessary information? How are we going to give them the information? Are they going to look back at their notes? Are they going to read this from a textbook? Maybe going back to the chapter book like that second grade class did? Are they going to use a website, maybe a mini lecture or a demonstration from you, their teacher? What will students do as a result of the discussion? So this can look like the synthesis activity. How are you going to tie this all together? How will students pull together everything that we talked about in our discussion and apply what they have learned? So you could have them write a summary, you could have them create a visual organizer or map highlighting key ideas. You could have them write a formal essay or even make a multimedia presentation. So, going off of a discussion or wrapping everything together, this is a writing extension. Many of the thinking moves are the same that underlie good writing. We can highlight these moves and then connect them to the writing process and give students writing assignments that stem from our class discussion. So, for example, you could say, we've had a rich discussion on what makes art art, and we've looked at 3 different artists' definitions of art. Which definition do you most agree with? In your response, make sure you address and respond to the other 2 definitions. So, just to recap, Circle of Knowledge is providing teachers with a framework for planning and conducting discussions that lead to more student participation and more deeper thinking from our students. So for my reference, I was referring to the book, The Core 6 Essential Strategies for Achieving Excellence with the Common Core. And I listed the authors here, and this was Chapter 4, Circle of Knowledge. Thank you.